much for joining me today. This is a fun one to talk about. It's some lessons that we've learned through this COVID fun. One thing that's really a strength, I would say, with TTT is our culture. And we've always had a strong culture. And the question is how do you keep that strong culture while you are working remotely? So let me just make this a full screen. There we go. Didn't that work? That worked. Beautiful. Thank you. So, creating confidence, or this is actually I'm gonna give a little dirty circuit here. This is the third time in the last week and a half I've given the same presentation. So the first time it was for a conference in Chile, and it was called was it Confluir Confidenza, because we did it in the Spanish at the beginning, and then last week I did it in Korean because I got to be the keynote speaker for a Korean conference. So this is Tongtong Hage Shinshin Malal, Kamal Kiwara, which basically means creating confidence. The fun one with the Korean one is I did it because my wife's Korean and we speak Korean at home and all that. And I just I was going to remove, the wonderful Mrs. Hobbs and my family, but why not keep it? This is a personal thing. People who know me know I like to be personal. So there's my mother on her 75th birthday. Wonderful day in Korea. But anyhow, a little bit about TTT. You don't need to know that much about my mother-in-law. So TTT, we've been around for about 11 years now. We got, relatively well known here in Vancouver and abroad for creating native mobile experiences. And as our client and customer partner base got bigger, our technology offerings got bigger. So, we would, I would say that mobile is definitely, part of our bread and butter, but we do a lot in web, a lot of bleeding edge technologies and all that fun stuff. I'm going to do my best to get through this marketing crap ASAP because no one wants to go through marketing crap. But, we consider ourselves to be the special forces in software design development. We're really blessed here at TTT because we have a lot of great, very talented people that want to be part of the experience and be part of the journey. And because of that, I consider it the special forces because it seems like those who are really good want to work with those who are really good. And we're blessed that we just get to, jump through those hoops together. We have a vision. It's on the wall. I don't know if you can see it right here. I am in the office. Actually, I pointed to Emma as she's walking in the office. But it's to create software that impacts 1 billion lives. And we use this as actually the barometer for how we choose our projects. Because, again, we have that special forces effect. We like to say, instead of just saying it's a business, we want to go up from the angle that really we're creating impact. We're trying to create big things. And again, this is kind of where our culture comes from. We don't want to do things small. We want to do things big, and we want to, do things amazing together. And this vision is really what allows us to do that as a group. Because what we want to do is we want to create impact, and we want to create impact for a big group. And we're really, we're well on that journey right now, and just get excited every day. I come to the office thinking we get to go further and further down that track. Services we do, blah, 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 marketing. I know you guys said you love marketing. But, we do everything but SEO and games. How about that? And technologies, besides the typical ones you expect, because we have the special forces effect, we can do a lot of things that a lot of other companies say they can do, but we can actually pull it off. Machine learning, AI, definitely there. Machine vision, facial recognition, we do a lot with that. In fact, the co-founder of TTT, besides the amazing Josephine Wong, is my twin brother, and he can open up my iPhone, and I can't open up his, and it's really stupid. So we created our own facial recognition algorithm called Amanda AI that sits at our front door, and it recognizes you. It lets you in, but it's also bang on with twins, even some mere twins who David and I are not. But it knows the difference between that. But blockchain, cloud computing, buzz. We can get the buzziest with the best of them. Why do people tend to work with us? And I promise you, this is like one of our last marketing slides, is the quality of service. We've been around for a long time and our processes are really good. I hate this one. It says 100% in-house. It's kind of literal. I think we have 9 people here today. So in-house really just means in the local Vancouver area. We've done a lot of solutions, and for industry recognition, and this is something I'm proud of, there's these groups that are kind of like the TripAdvisor or industry, like a Clutch or a Good Firms, and they rank us among our peers, and they have us in the top 2 in Canada for software and for mobile, and in the top 50 globally. So it's something we're really proud of and something that we're going to aim to improve on every year. So for us, culture is everything. Okay, everything is driven by culture. for us, as you're about to see. So, we would have barbecues, we'd have boxing, we have yoga, we do everything, and we want to do it together. Even during COVID, people wanted to be here and be attached. But we have a really, really strong culture, and it's something I'm proud of. We're big in the community. We had Van Hacks last weekend, a couple days ago, along with VSW. It's something we're really proud of, and it's something that we want to do every year, which is, really trying to create digital assets to help the local community, especially in the nonprofit organizations. But we do things from the Pride Parade to YV Arcade to Vidya. We sponsor a lot of hackathons. We want to be part of the community. And that's why when, Caddy and Viv say, hey, is there something you can do with us? We're like, hands down, done. We are always happy to be part of this. Then after all that fun in March, obviously, COVID became a game changer for us all. And it changes things. So we went from this to this, which is kind of sad. And that's how it still feels out here. Like I said, we have about 9 people today, and that's kind of a high average. I kind of feel like we just have a big clubhouse, to be honest, which is nice. I think everyone has at least 2 TVs to themselves and maybe an Xbox, but at the same time, it's a great place to work out of. But with all this change, what does that mean for our culture? How are we going to figure out the processes needed to deal with this? So in the past, we've been really lucky because we did have a work from home policy, so people could work from home if they want to. And when COVID started, we actually started one thing that I think was pretty smart. We actually forced everyone to work from home for a week. And the reason why we did it for a week instead of say just do it tomorrow is because in one day, you don't forget your plug, you can get around it. But by 3rd day, 4th day, you start realizing the things you're missing from the office. So we did this in order to transition pretty easily. It was a relatively good transition, but I think the planning was a big part of that, making the transition so successful. And we also made a plan right there and then when we were trying to figure out what with the COVID, but how do we keep our culture? So we actually came up with a plan for this. And let me share some of that fun with you. So one of the best ways to set your team up for success when remote, or anything for that matter, but especially when remote, in this case, is to know to come up with a definition for success. And without the subtleties of nonverbal communication that you have, when you're not in the office, you got to be crystal clear about these goals, or else important information can get lost. So we like to think that it's best to define the goals as SMART goals. And when I say SMART goals, I mean specific. So one of the best ways to set your teams up for success, specific, measurable, achievable, let's go with the R, relevant, and time-bound. Now, when I say specific, I'm trying to think of what is it that we want to accomplish? Why is this goal important? Who is involved? Where is it located? Which resources are or limits are involved? So you really want to think about the details because the details are going to be important when it's, you're not side by side with each other. So you should be, the goals should be really, really clear, specific. Otherwise, you won't be able to focus your efforts or feel truly motivated to achieve them. And so again, ask the 5 W's, ask these questions. In terms of measurable, it's important to have measurable goals so you can track the progress and stay motivated. Assessing the progress helps you to stay focused, meet your deadlines, feel the excitement of getting closer to achieving the goals, which is important as a team, so you can celebrate them. And a measurable goal should address questions such as can we maintain a similar velocity now that we're not working side by side? So again, measurable, how much, how many, how will I know when it's accomplished? You really want to define these things. In terms of achievable, your goal needs to be realistic, okay, and attainable in order to be successful. And that's why achievable is so important here. So it should stretch your ability to, but remain possible, okay? So when you set an achievable goal, you may want to be able to identify previously overlooked opportunities or resources that can bring you closer to it. So in this case, I want to ask, how can I accomplish? I'm going to camp while I accomplish this goal, and how realistic is the goal as well? In terms of relevancy, this step is about ensuring that your goal matters to you. And that's really important because doing make work in this case is totally useless. So, is it worthwhile? is it the right time? And that's really important too, especially when things have changed and maybe you're not as efficient. Does this match our other efforts or needs? Am I the right person to reach this goal? Is it applicable in the current socioeconomic environment? So, I mean, obviously we want to make sure that the plans that we're doing really make sense, because if not, don't bother doing them. You're just doing make work. And time bound, and this is really, really important, okay? So every goal needs a target date so that you have a deadline to focus on and something to work towards. And this helps you prevent everyday tasks from taking away over your long-term goals. So this is really important. So, I mean, here we want to think when, 6 months out, 6 weeks out, what can we do today? And set those goals as a group. Because if you don't, you'll just focus on today every time. You won't focus on where you need to be. And having a 6 week and 6 month window really allows you to aim for those goals in an achievable way. So again, if your goals are SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, and they'll be clear and reachable even while you're remote. Okay, so they say communication is important for all types of relationships, and it's even more important for coworkers that are working remotely. Okay, so we all need to adjust our communication habits when we're working remote. So the first, default to over communication. At first, this seems a little weird. It's like having 6 layers of blankets over top of you, but it's really, really, really important because you want to make sure that everyone understands everything. So miscommunication is the true management boogeyman, and it can cause all kinds of delays and blockers. So this is further exacerbated when communication is happening remotely and when someone is waiting on you for a pull request, for example, or a piece of information or some decision has to be made. And so it's a good idea to use multiple communication tools and channels when you're communicating. So don't just focus on one, try to cover a lot. As well, update the relevant team all the time. So after submitting a pull request, send a Slack message to update the team. Like, even though it seems redundant, just put it out there so that way everyone knows, okay, they're working, they're doing this, and that way everyone knows what's up. Report progress as often as you can. So at the end of every day, provide an update of your team or for your team with its like blockers, progress, where you are. It's really important so that way everyone knows where they are. And then if someone's falling behind and it's communicated and the team then can try to pick up the slack or help out or see if we need additional resources, all of these things can be met because we're keeping report progresses constantly evaluated. Make it easy to join, and this is really, really important. To be honest, I'm getting a little tired of this, but I have this in redundant places. But so if you're using a communication platform like Zoom or Google Hangouts or any of those things, make sure to send a session link in multiple places. So for example, I'll have it in the calendar. I'll probably send it in Slack, and we'll have it in the email too. So that way, some people like to look up things faster in the calendar, some like to look in Slack. This way, when either people are rushing, because I have back-to-back meetings that are like, okay, it ended at 2:30, the next one starts at 2:30. You don't have a lot of time for looking for things and you start panicking. It's nice to have it in multiple places. It's just the first place you looked, you grab it. As well, it's better to over-communicate than to under-communicate, okay? I guess this one pretty straightforward. As well, use the right channels. So if you're like most organizations, you probably use a variety of different communication tools in the office. Make sure you use the proper tool and the proper channel for those specific needs, okay? So if you have an urgent need, consider directly messaging someone or even giving them a call. That said, most often a message to the relevant channel or group chat will keep everyone in the loop and encourage pragmatic over communication. And using group chats or setting up channels to talk about certain topics can also be really helpful in making sure that all the relevant parties are being kept in the loop. Okay. Encourage video meetings. I will not do a sales call or any of these things, or at least I discourage it if we're not able to see their faces, because we do big ticket items, for example. If I hit someone with a $500,000 estimate, I want them to say, oh, okay, that's a $500,000 estimate, not, oh. And it's hard to capture that when you don't see their face. So every time I do kind of like I'm showing my cards in terms of what the estimate is, I want to see their reaction because it really helps me drive how I should be communicating with this person. But it's also great for, social isolation, to feel like we're working together and communicate it. And that's really important if we can see each other to do it. As well, manage your expected response times. This is so important because, when we have the collisions in the office, people are like, they expect. So say for example, that you were supposed to have a meeting with someone, but they double booked and you just don't know that. if you're in the office, you can quickly say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm in the meeting room. Let's talk in 10 minutes. But if you expected you had a question out and you expected someone in 10 minutes like they normally get the information to you, but they don't get it to you in, say, 2 hours, 3 hours, well, you should at least say, I need this information by X or by this certain time. So that way people understand, because those collisions aren't there. Those very quick, just walked in and said, hey, we need to do this and that. It's so much easier when you're local, but when you're remote, it's a bit of a challenge. And also anger starts quickly if you're expecting to be answered in 5 minutes and you don't get it in 2 hours, because we don't have that verbal communication or that visual communication really help with the understanding that we need that right now. As well, there's some little tools like in Slack that you can actually set a status, and you can, as you can see here, you can set yourself to away. So that way, actually, the team recognizes that that you are away, that you're in a meeting. So Slack can actually set that up for you. And there's a lot of tools that you can use that'll actually automate that when you're in a meeting. So you tie your calendar into it. I highly recommend it. And that lets people understand that you are busy. And they can figure out why you're not, when they ping you on Slack, you're not responding right away. They can understand that. And this is super important. Okay, document everything. Without your colleagues or supervisors sitting nearby, you might find yourself having to ask a lot of questions over Slack. And this can be super time consuming, not only for those asking, but for those who are going to answer the response. So a good way to counteract that is through documentation. Okay, so there are some great online apps and services that you can use for your documentation, such as like Confluence or Notion. We have both, but I got to say, Notion is amazing. We use it for everything. And I got to say, I'm dealing with a lot of UBC students, and I'm finding that they're doing they use Notion as if it's just an everyday tool now. But so we use it to just basically document everything now, so that someone says, hey, they're a new employee, they need to know how to get on the Wi-Fi. Well, that already exists. They have all the information at their hand because it's already been documented in a really organized way to find the information. And so again, in that way, if someone had a question related to any of the topics that needs to be pulled from a knowledge base, the team lead can direct them to that article instead of taking the time to answer it. So, for example, how do we set up new environments for clients? Documentation for the current project we maintain. How do we submit our apps to the storage? These are, how could we create branches and merge them while we develop? These are all common concerns that we deal with all the time, but there's no reason for us to have to explain it when people can actually look at the documentation, just know what they need to do, especially when we're remote. It's so much easier. As well, collect meeting notes, and this is super important. Just after a meeting, spend 5 or 10 minutes just writing everything up that came out of that meeting, and then send it to everyone, all the relevant teams. I actually I get permission, but I actually voice record my first meetings, for example, and then I throw it into HubSpot, or into Notion, the voice recording, and that way everyone that wasn't part of that meeting, specific meetings, mostly first client meetings, they actually can listen and get a feel for what we were discussing. So when they have to do an estimate or break things down, those meeting notes are actually really, really important. And document imperfectly. There's so many people out there that just say, oh, I couldn't post it because it was only half rail, or I didn't have all the information. It doesn't matter. At least it gets us understanding where you were, and maybe then we can ask some questions to finish it as a team. Okay. But for us, culture is everything. We are not a remote first company. We're an office-based company in remote mode. I'm still telling myself that. We're proud of our hardworking family-like culture, and we won't let social distancing get in the way of staying connected. This was a fun event. Mitch, our head of mobile, he taught a ukulele, or as he said, ukulele, lesson to all of us. My son decided to show up. I guess he was skipping school that day. Our Christmas party, again, we want to be together. I think this is a really big part of who we are. So all of the values in the office should be the same while remote, okay? So it's important to make sure that everyone feels included and has a chance to participate in the For Fun messaging channels on Slack. As well, check to make sure newer employees have been added to older channels and encourage people to check in with each other. That is super important. Make sure the new employees are added to the older channels, because how many inside jokes and everything are going on with the rest of the staff that they're missing out on. So really be mindful about making sure everyone is part of the action, okay? Be proactive with culture, okay? Since going remote, we've seen a surge in people sharing pet photos and home workstations, selfies, and stretch videos, social distancing is compliant, board games. We've done a whole bunch of those. Home baking, all of those things. Share it as a group. Make sure that everyone sees you're having fun, and that you caring is sharing, and sharing is caring. And so make sure that everyone sees what you're doing and talk about it. Have little contests. One thing that we did that was super, super, super important, though, is we created a fun committee, okay? And that fun committee is dedicated to just events and having a good time. So every Friday, even if it's remote, we have fun. Last Friday, we had a great thing that we sent beer and painting supplies to everyone. And then we had about 8 people in the office here, and then on the Zoom channel, and we all did a paint lesson all together. And we all shared the paintings after the end. It was so much fun. But that came out of the fun committee. They're doing runs. They're doing all of these things that even though we're remote, we're still doing it, but have people that are dedicated just to setting up fun time. That connectivity between each other makes all the difference in the world. So on this wall under the statement, which is on our wall here, it's really important to me, okay? So let me read it to you. It says, our team is the core of our success. We take pride in cultivating a culture of openness and passion. Whether you're a developer, designer, management, or co-op student, every single person here contributes to who we are as a company. So we have to think about how we keep this goal that's stuck on our wall, so we know this is something that's really important to us, still relevant while we're remote. And to be honest, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I also think it's easier when you were a local first company that had a strong culture. I think it's a lot harder to be a remote first company that might not have had a strong culture. And one thing that I really like to share actually is that I'm doing a podcast. I'm having a lot of fun doing this podcast. So I've been interviewing Canadian tech entrepreneurs. I'm on the 7th or 8th, well, no, 9th one. Just got released yesterday with the wonderful Ray Walia of Launch Ventures. But I highly recommend, check it out. We've got Ian from Later. We've got a lot of really great success stories. And I get to chat with them and share their journeys. And it's honestly so much fun. So if you get the chance, check it out, ttt.studio/podcast. If you hate it, tell me in the comments you hate it. If you love it, great. Give me a subscription. It'd be wonderful to have you part of the journey. And thank you.